Good morning, everybody. John Sfiocla here from GAI Insights with the Gen AI news briefing today. Rating your news essential, important, or optional, saving time in your day, putting thoughts in your head. Paul and I are coming to you along with a bunch of the analysts live from our conference, which is just starting. You'll hear a little background noise as we're sitting in the ballroom getting ready for our big show today and tomorrow. So very excited, and also have a full house today. We have Luda, Paul, David, Tim, Adam, Amanda, and Ankaj. So lots to cover. Interesting new stuff from Meta all the way through things around medicine. All right, Ankaj, please give us the first article. Oh, sorry. There we go.
Sure, John. So the first one that we have for today comes from Meta, and it is regarding Meta Movie Gen. So Meta's video generation model.
Ankaj, can you hear me?
Yes, John. Can you hear me?
I hear Ankaj, John. Do you not hear him?
I think John might have gotten disconnected. Adam, this one's yours.
Yeah, thanks. I'll just jump in. We'll figure out what's going on with John in a second there. Good morning, everyone. Yeah, so Meta Movie Gen is certainly cool, and it looks state of the art. I think given how crowded this space is getting, and it's just at this point another player in it, I'd probably consider this news optional, especially since it's in research. This isn't something that's available yet. But man, Meta just continues to stack the coffer. We saw earlier this year from them Segment Anything Model 2, SAM2, and I can see how they're going to leverage that in this. You know, you see examples down the page of specifically saying change the scene to a snowstorm, or put blue flippers on that thing, and the fact that it has the intelligence and understanding to know what the things are within the space and make the changes selectively to them in the videos is definitely a step up. But again, this is in research, and it's a pretty crowded competitive space at this point, so I was rating it as optional.
Great. Can you guys hear me now? I just came back.
Yeah, we can.
Very good.
But it is
excellent. So go ahead.
It is stunning, I have to admit, and with the news from Apple that we will review later, this is amazing. Actually, both of them, I would, if combined, I would rate as important. But yeah, I agree with optional because it's just an advancement and it's research.
The thing that caught my attention is they did this with two models at least. One 30 billion, I think, was the video model, and a 13 billion audio parameter. These are parameters. 30 billion parameters video model, 13 billion parameter audio model. So these are much smaller models. Not only are they open source, but they're much smaller. So that caught my attention. I think if you're in the video editing world, it goes without saying you need to pay attention to this stuff. But I would agree it's optional for the general AI leader.
Yeah, that's one of the themes we're going to hit today at the conference here, is that one of our predictions for 2025 is that, the rise of the small models and the coordination of small models orchestrated over time, integrating with the big models, kind of the architecture Apple has said they're going to head to, which is big model in the background, small model in front of you. Anyway, and as you say, Tim, it's just amazing what they're able to do. All right, so we get this as an optional next.
Okay, the next one that we have for today comes from Ethan Mollick, and he talks about some tactics for using AI in organizations.
Yes, I'm tempted to be a bit snarky because old Ethan is a professor at a business school, and the way he talks about organizational change is, shall we say, different. Anyway, uninformed maybe, I don't know, but yes. What'd you think here? Who's on this one? Luda, you said you've been.
I think it's David.
David, it is. All right, David, go for it. What do you think?
Okay. I didn't realize I was on this one, but I will happily take it. I did give it a good read. I'm an Ethan Mollick fan, although I feel like the last several of his pieces that we've read, we haven't been as hot on as we had been in the past. And I feel the same about this one. So he's basically making some arguments that I feel like we've been making for a while about the fact that to figure out how to put these tools to work in your particular organization, you really need to work with it on your own, because no one really knows your organization as well as you. And as someone like John, who's been in the consulting world for a while, he's really negative on consultants. I've seen him mention them several times in here. He mentions how they don't even know your organization. You really need to do it yourself. Tells you to have hackathons and do things to try to encourage your employees to do it, because whoever does a job is the one who's going to know how to put this into their job and use it in a productive way there better than anybody else. But they might be scared to do so because they think that they're either just going to get fired or they're going to have to be even more productive when they show they're productive here. So I'm not sure if I got paused there, but anyways, I feel like they're kind of common arguments about what you need to do to put this in your organization in some degree, right? And it doesn't even cover all the things you would need to do. So I'm going optional on this one.
Yeah, it's interesting. When you say about, I think there's of course there are bad consultants and there are naive users of consulting, and at the same time, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry, and not everybody who buys them is stupid. You know what I mean? It's kind of a thing.
Yeah, I disagree. I mean, I think especially with something new like this, I think they can be helpful in this space to a degree, and I think they're helpful in a lot of different spaces. Outside perspective is always super valuable, right? But even I remember when I was at McKinsey and we interviewed him. In the interview, he was saying negative things about consultants. So he's really down on the industry.
Well, he wouldn't be alone. There's plenty of them. Anyway, yeah, I thought that some of the ideas in here were certainly worthwhile in the sense of, you want your end users to do it. You have to manage the fear. You need, alignment to, what the goals and objectives are. That just we have seen some consultants in this marketplace, because AI is such a hot topic, really go to market without the depth that they ought to have. So I think there's some fair criticisms in here, but I also put it as optional.
And this is interesting because I was complaining a little bit about grade inflation, but I would lean towards important on this article for the AI leader. I think we underestimate the what's known as the professor-student problem. We do this every day, all the time. We're acutely aware of these ideas that we've been talking about for a long time. I would agree with you that the basis and the soundness of some of his ideas are, let's just say, high level. Okay, so there's much more that's needed if you really want to do some serious work. But I think that the points he makes about how ideas get squashed in this particular case, very concretely, like, look, your policies are basically incenting people to keep this a secret. That's a huge issue that a lot of people are not really dealing with actively. So I wouldn't give it an essential, but I'd say, if you're an AI leader, this is worth a scan just for those high level ideas. I don't think you're going to get a lot of immediate tactical, like, yes, you can set up a lab. I mean, he talks about setting up labs and doing crowdsourcing and all that's great. You're going to need more than that. But I think the idea in particular that you've really got to turn from squashing things to growing things is a pretty important idea in this area, because I see it in all the organizations that I deal with. Every large organization's first reaction is the big squash down of any use of AI, whether they need to or not. And there are risks, and those risks have to be taken seriously. But the risks are, what they're doing is forcing people underground, and that's not good.
Yeah,
All right.
I agree with Tim, actually. I was also leaning into important because we see two strategies. The leaders who really are proactive, they're trying to train their whole workforce in AI and applying specialized training for functions, right? So they're spreading it. And in this type of culture, it will thrive. And what he's talking about is that it's a different culture when people are using it but afraid to say something to their colleagues. So I think it's an important point that needs to be made. So I thought important is a good one for this one.
All right, the hard graders are coming out of the woodwork, giving this an important. What do you think, Amanda?
Couldn't get to unmute, but yes, I agree also with the important.
All right, David, we're outvoted. What do you say? Adam, you okay with going important here?
Yeah, I could. As a nod to Tim, I was even thinking about the fact that it's fairly information dense, and you could debatably say that just the links within it for reference and sort of helping to build some cases, it could be considered one of those back pocket sort of articles that the leader is going to come back to pull from. So I was on the fence, but I could support important.
Yeah, and despite the fact that we're picking on his, I don't know how to put it, but picking on the last few articles and not as favorable on them. And there are valid points, I think, about this article as well. He's he has a lot of street cred in this area. So I think, again, it's a good article for people to have, as we say, in their back pocket.
All righty, important it is. Ankash, next.
The next one comes from Apple, and Apple has released Depto. It's an AI model that rewrites the rules of 3D vision.
Yeah, amazing in terms of the ability to just take a 2D picture and then construct the 3D reality behind it. According to this, right, good enough to be, there for some robots and so forth. So, Luda, what'd you think of this?
I actually tempting to put important on this because Apple released it as an open source. There are a number of innovations that are serious step up in video in general and 3D vision, but the detail that they are able to produce, the speed and precision without an extra metadata layer, the metric depth that they're able to achieve. So all of that, I think it's an important development that will, I think, improve or accelerate the text to video. So I thought important.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was a friend of mine, dear friend of mine, was in the Navy during the first Gulf War, and he was doing mission planning. And he said the amount of work they had to put into, trying to figure out the 3D dimensions of the satellite pictures and so forth was just amazing. Now, this was some time ago, his first Gulf War, but really amazing. Yeah. All right, so we're headed for important on this one. What do you think, folks?
I think optional on this one. I agree. This could be one that we look back on and say, holy, you know what? But I think it's a piece of research right now. It has to hold up. In and of itself, it's cool, but doesn't really do anything valuable. But if they really have, particularly boundary detection and other things, these improvements as they state, and they really prove out in practice versus theory, this is going to change everything from robotics to lots of other stuff. But if we're talking about the day-to-day life of a person in an enterprise as an AI leader, it's not going to affect them that much. So you could say, I could go with important because we say, well, important means if you read it, if you have time, read it. But in this case, it's more for fun than for, if you have interest in this stuff, then, you really need to know it.
Yeah, but Tim, you actually have said it, that the impact can be dramatic across many, many industries, right?
It
that
can,
actually,
but maybe not.
Yeah, but it is. But it is open source with the weights and everything, and it's a step up from what we have before. It's outperforms everything that's out there. So
that's true.
If people in those industries that are struggling with it will incorporate it into what they're doing, and they can, right? That can be a dramatic change. That's why.
So for people interested in vision and computer vision and computer interpretation of 3D scenes, this is essential, absolutely. But that's a pretty small crowd, I think.
I think it's a decent size, actually. I'm on the important camp with this. I mean, the fact that it can do this like exact to scale, right? I mean, that's going to change a lot of industries. I think, when you think about predictive maintenance and maintenance in general and things that they've been trying to use, like things like the Vision Pro for today, and they can't because it's not accurate enough. Like just right there, that's like all of manufacturing, right? If you just think about that one use case.
I'm not going to argue if the majority wants important. I think it's very interesting. I have my biases.
So
All right.
Is it released or not then? Because it
Yeah.
says released and then it says research. That's what I'm confused. Because I think that plays a factor for me as well. If it's literally out there and people can start experimenting, I'm more on the important camp.
Yeah, I think you can download it, and including the weights, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, because it was a little confusing for me with the title, and then inside it's saying research and could. It keeps saying could, not that it's done anything yet.
Yeah.
Gotcha. All right, we're heading for important. Adam, you okay with that? Last chance, going once, twice.
Yeah, it feels a bit niche to me as well. I'm in the Tim camp here, but I will respectfully defer.
All right, we're going important. Next.
Okay, the next one is a research paper which talks about influence of large language models on diagnostic reasoning.
Yeah, here we got it's I think the conclusion here is, hey, diagnostic reasoning, doesn't improve at all with large language models, according to this sample of about 40 docs, I think. I forget. Amanda,
50.
what'd you think? 50. Amanda, get a chance to look at this one?
So this is kind of what we were literally just saying, if it's a niche market. So I guess that's my thoughts here. Yeah, I guess just at a high level. And then I think, Tim, I think this is you as well to jump in, but I don't know. I'm teetering on optional or important for this one.
Well, this one is super optional for me. I'm going to channel my inner John because, they didn't even look at outcomes. They had humans evaluate the strategy for differential diagnosis. Differential diagnosis just means that's how I actually determine what's wrong with you. Yeah. And that's the holy grail, if you will, of clinical diagnostics. So if you can get an LLM to do differential diagnosis, then you're basically a doctor at that point. So a couple of things that don't come out in the headline. One is that ChatGPT-4 alone did better differential diagnosis than any of the doctors. Okay, that's a little interesting. Two, I just would say the methods here are, what's a technical term for it? Crap. So I don't think it's like nutritional, things. There's so many confounding factors. There's so much subjective judgment involved here. It's a very small sample. I don't think a large language model is going to improve diagnosis very much in a clinical level, in general, right? If your blood sugar is 600, you're a diabetic. It's not that hard to figure out. Okay. You need to get insulin. It's not that hard to figure out. In fact, if you ask doctors what their biggest complaint about electronic systems is, it's every time I prescribe insulin, it tells me it might cause low blood sugar. I know, I'm a doctor. Okay. So the obvious stuff isn't going to improve. The interesting study, I think, would be how much adverse impact is avoided because you have a second partner, as we call it, that is telling you, hey, you just made a bad diagnosis, or maybe you should consider this diagnosis, or maybe you should run that test. It's more of a safety net. And they do this, grand round. They have mechanisms for doing this in medicine to try and avoid adverse outcomes. And we still have hundreds of thousands of them every year. But you're not going to find that through a study like this. You're going to need a much more sophisticated study at much larger scale. It may be impossible to do. These are very, very difficult. So other than that, I thought it was terrific.
Yeah, I think it's actually is a little dangerous because they talk about the ChatGPT doing better than the other doctors, but then at the end they're saying it's not surprising. We gave it a very specialized cases, and of course it did better. So this is just don't don't look at it in isolation, and that's, I think, very misleading when it's in the top line and then at the bottom they just disclaim it. So I optional for me for sure.
Looks like we're headed for optional. I'm really glad, Tim, that when you're looking for rigor, you channel me. Maybe rigor with a little smart, little rigor with a little snark. I'm okay with that. All right, optional it is. Ankaj, next.
Okay, the next one comes from Cohere, and Cohere has made significant updates to its fine-tuning services.
Yeah, here we are, fine tuning emerging as a category. A lot of people are focusing on and so forth. You know, model improvement is, fine tuning after training. What'd you think here, Amanda?
Yeah, so it's pretty short. Not a lot in there, but yes, updates to the fine tuning. And again, it's sort of focusing on those specialized language models, which we have heard in the past when these first came out. How can we target, specialized use cases, things like that within companies? So it is targeting that. And again, like I said, it's pretty short and sweet. It's using this weights and biases, and it talks a little bit about, again, sort of this real-time monitoring and tracking. And so for those who were here on Friday, I spoke about an article too I had Friday about Canvas and OpenAI and this sort of real-time tracking button for the coding side of things. So I think that's an interesting note. So I could go important on this. The one thing that always irks me though is whenever it shows, like for example, it's outbeating, different models and things like that. But then the basically Cohere put that out. So they're basically saying we're beating people, not somebody else is saying they're beating people. So whenever I see that, it makes me a little suspect. But I think just in general, if this whole specialized niche models, things like that, I could go important, but curious others' thoughts.
Okay, and irked important here.
I'm going to go optional. I would go optional on this one. Yeah, this is another article that's basically a press release pickup by VentureBeat, clearly, and these fine tuning tools. I mean, I don't know. Cohere is reaching, I think, in these days for something to differentiate themselves on, and they seem to be going down, hey, we can help you customize models in various ways, you Mr. Enterprise. And does anyone know anybody that's actually using Cohere's tools at this point? I hesitate to call
McKinsey.
things.
Is McKinsey using it?
What's that?
McKinsey.
I don't know that that's the case anymore, actually.
Okay. They certainly announced it a lot. Yeah, not recently.
I thought they were the partner that created Lily, but yeah.
They're one of the partners that McKinsey has, but you can see now they have a bunch of strategic partnerships in this space.
Yep.
So I would go optional on this one.
All right, we're going from important to optional. I don't know, Adam. What do you think?
Bingo for me.
Okay.
It's a product announcement. It's a press release. It doesn't say anything. As Amanda noted, all the citations are Cohere. It's a press release.
What do you say, Adam?
I was optional on this one as well.
All right, optional it is. Sorry, Amanda. We're tuning into your irkedness more than your rating. Okay. And we have the last one coming up here. DeepMind and BioNTech. Lab assistants, not just doing the science. Go ahead, Akash.
So just repeating what John said, so DeepMind and BioNTech, they have launched separate AI lab assistants for scientific research.
Yeah, very much interesting. As we read into more and more of these, if you think of the whole scientific process, especially for new drugs, it's so complex, long, and elongated. Long. Now we're getting people optimizing different parts. Luda, what'd you think here?
I rated this article as optional. This is research, and it just says, look, we're building it, and there are other people that are building it. And this is granted, this is a very important area, and they're trying to improve AlphaFold that is being employed out there in research. So this is good, but I think it's optional.
All right, we're going to vote for optional here. Amanda, you got an opinion on this one? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I think it's important for people in life sciences.
Yeah.
And there's a broader trend here I'd be interested in people's reaction to that I thought was also important, which is they talk about BioNTech buying InstaDeep. I won't go into the details of the lab stuff, but the idea here is that, look, if you're in any significant activity in the WINS framework, you may want to consider something like BioNTech is doing, because it starts out talking about Google DeepMind, but it also talks about BioNTech's new subsidiary that they bought. And this is, own your own intelligence, whatever you want to call it.
Sure.
They are taking some of their really interesting and unique knowledge about the ability to do scientific experiments, lab experiments. So this is way beyond what's been mostly talked about in life sciences, at least on the research side, which is AlphaFold, finding drugs, basically. This is about overall process, and there's a lot that can be done there. And so there's an interesting broader theme about, should you be looking at some of these interesting companies to buy them? And an AI leader is going to be pretty involved in that, I suspect, and maybe leading that. So I can still go optional, but it's an interesting, important trend, I think. And I do think if you're in life sciences, this is important, if not essential.
All righty. So should we tag it with an I or an O on this one, you think?
I'm thinking O. I think we have a
All right.
majority of those.
All right, we're going
Optional.
O. All right, optional it is. No grade inflation here. We are slamming down. Okay, saving people time. All right, Ankash, I imagine you're just about to give us the tote board. Here we are. Add it to the stage. All right, we've got a couple importance, mostly optional time back in your day. Monday, coming into the week. Good news, don't have to read a lot. And you can have some fun with Meta Movie Gen. And excellent. Well, in terms of announcements here, let me get rid of my virtual background here and just give you guys an idea. So here we are at Gen AI World 2024 at the beautiful Intercontinental in Boston. Folks will be starting to come this hour, coming up here. Official program starts at 9. We've got a full house. Really looking forward to seeing a bunch of folks in person, and then just having the excitement of our community moving forward. It's one of the things I think we enjoy the most and the proudest of. We're really trying to create a learning community here, which, is a set of, content, relationships, growth, and so forth. So, because we really think it takes a community on something so important and transformational as what we're going through right now. So, any other thoughts or anything? Okay, everybody. See you tomorrow morning. Should be fun. Bye-bye now.
I'm going to grab some coffee.